What's up, everybody? Kyle Barboza here, bass player, music educator, and gear junkie, because today we're talking gear. And I wasn't lying in the description. I really think there's a piece of gear that I find to be essential. I use it on every single gig I play, and not many people have it because not many companies make one. Okay, so here's the scenario. You plug your bass in, you turn your amp up, you start playing, and you realize that your tone is super boomy. Super bassy, super boomy. What do? All right, the first thing you do is turn your low end knob down, right? Wrong. Well, it's not wrong. It'll do the trick, but the thing is, when you turn your low end knob down, it affects a lot of your low frequencies, so it's going to pull down a lot of that beefy goodness and the punch in your low end in order to get rid of the boominess. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. Well, you can also use a high-pass filter, right? High-pass filter is a little more surgical than that. It only cuts off from a certain frequency and then cuts everything below that frequency. So, not bad, right? Nah, not ideal. We're not ideal yet because a lot of the time, the problem that makes your tone boomy actually has to do with the room you're playing in. Okay, so quickly, all rooms have what are called resonant room frequencies. I'm not a sound guy or a professional at this. I'm kind of a dummy, actually. But resonant room frequencies are basically frequencies that resonate more loudly in a certain room. And for me, since I play in a lot of bar rooms and a lot of small venues right now that are not dedicated live music venues, these resonant room frequencies absolutely kill my tone when I first turn my amp up in these rooms. Even here in this practice room, I have a resonant room frequency here that even at practice volume affects my tone. And I'm going to show you because I set up my amp in here, and I'm going to show you that even that little bit of frequency can cloud up your tone, even though it's not a big deal in this room. But whatever, I digress. We'll get there in a second. But let's talk about what piece of gear can deal with that resonant room frequency. All right, here we are, the big reveal. And it's not that big of a reveal. It's kind of boring, but again, essential. The piece of gear I'm talking about is called a feedback filter. Or it's also called a notch filter. I've seen it different names in different places. But basically what this is it's basically just a parametric EQ that can just turn down a very thin band of frequencies. Okay, so it will just get rid of that one frequency that is making your sound boomy. And it will totally clear up your sound, and on top of it, it'll leave all the rest of your low end intact so that you still have all that nice beefiness, all that nice punchiness in your tone, but you're just notching out that resonant room frequency. So, before we get into the sound samples, let's talk about a few brands that actually make a product that has one of these, which there's not many. I can only think of two. And we'll also talk about some ways that you can use an EQ pedal to do a similar job. It's not as good, but a similar job. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, this is all I got for you. This is the only product that's out right now that's not defunct that has a feedback filter on it. The Bergantino Super Pre does actually have one on it, and it's the reason I bought this preamp. Truth be told, this is a really expensive preamp, and it's got great features on it. I mean, it's got everything but the kitchen sink, and everything is high quality. It's Bergantino. Everything's super high quality. It's great. But the thing that put me over the edge buying this was that it has one of these, because I have to tell you, every time I plug this in at a venue, I use that feedback filter. Every single gig. I haven't played a gig with this thing yet where I haven't used it and it hasn't improved my tone by getting rid of the resonant feedback. So there's that. The only other piece of gear I can think of, and please hit the comments if you know who makes one of these. The only other pieces of gear I can think of that have a feedback filter are acoustic image amps, which those are marketed toward upright players, really. And I'm an upright bass player, and I had one. That's the reason I know about these. And it's great because upright players have to deal with this twice as much as electric players do. Upright basses really actually feedback in the low end in a lot of rooms, and this obviously like helped that immensely. But that's all I can think of for people who make them, and it boggles my mind because I honestly think everybody would benefit on every amp from having one of these very simple tools to help you tune a room. This is a thing. I just said tune a room. That's what sound engineers call this, I believe, when they actually like start EQing a space for a show. Sound engineers, the first thing they do is they notch out these resonant room frequencies. And I think all bass players should be thinking about this because, again, like, all right, let's go to the first, but before I show you, let's go to the tape. Let's actually listen to the samples. Look, here's the thing. I'm in a practice room. I'm using this cigar mic above me. It's not ideal. Honestly, the tone is going to sound good both with the resonant room frequency and without it. But I want you to hear the difference because even at a low volume, here in the room, this cleared up my tone a little bit. So check it out. Here's the AB. They also affect the notes that kind of vibrate sympathetically with that frequency, so usually like the fifth and the octave. Check out the sound sample an octave up from where I was just playing and hear the difference. You can hear how the feedback filter took out just some of that noise pollution, the low-end pollution, and it made my tone just a little bit more punchy. I have to tell you, you can take my word for it or not, but when you're at a gig volume, the difference is not subtle. It's night and day. I mean, when I do not use this feedback filter, I can't hear my fingers as well. My tone is not as punchy because it's being clouded by these resonant frequencies. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. Okay, I'll stop preaching it right now. I'll trust you to trust me. But you can also get rid of these frequencies with an EQ pedal. Now, like I said, it's not ideal, but if you can find an EQ pedal, and there are numerous, they're all over the place, but an EQ pedal that has more than, I'd say, like 9 bands. Lots of people make these. So I would say like 9 and above are going to be thin enough EQ bands to where when you cut, if you can find this resonant frequency, which again, they're usually between 90 and 140 hertz. It's one of those, it's in that range. If you can notch out this frequency with an EQ pedal, it's almost as good as using one of these notch filters. Almost as good. So basically what I'm telling you is two things. Two things here. One, learn how to tune a room by recognizing what frequencies are clouding up your tone. Learn how to listen for the resonant room frequency. The way you do it is just by play your low notes when you first plug into a room, and just see if there are 1 or 2 or 3 notes that stick out more than the others. Play all the way onto your A string. A lot of it play up to B flat, B, C. These can go all the way up to like D flat. So go ahead and play up to those notes and just, see if any of them stick out to you. That's the resonant room frequency. All you got to do after that is figure out what frequency that note is. Like I said, it's not 100% of the time, but honestly, since I've started noticing it, I have not played a gig yet where I didn't notice a resonant room frequency. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was interesting. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of that. Let me know if you can think of good EQ pedals that have lots of bands on them that you can, kind of do this with. Or, if you can think of other actual feedback filters on pieces of gear, preamps and stuff like that. Let us know. I'm very curious. I don't know many. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you especially to my KTB patrons here on YouTube. Thank you for your support. If you're interested in becoming a KTB patron, here's a little sneak peek at this week's exclusive YouTube member video. Those 3 notes can lead you into any chord change here. 4, 6, 5, 1. And I can play them in any way. All right, so I'm going to kind of just riff on these 4 chords. Let's start with, I'm going to bring up a backing track here. Let's go 4, 1, 5, 6. Let's say those are the chord changes, right? I'm just kind of use this hinge to connect the chords in different ways, and you'll see what I'm saying. Okay, everybody, I'll see you on the next one. Have a great week.